you ever let the color of your skin, where you come from, the environment you grew up in, stop you from chasing your dreams, baby, let's get it. My hand to please don't segregate. Dressed in a suit, I can't relate. Minority report, can't ignore being raised from poor and your credit score. My hand to please don't segregate. Dressed in a suit, I can't relate. Minority report, can't ignore being raised from
Bro,
Take two.
We literally just had the perfect intro. See, the fame's getting into you, bro. You don't even want to do the background stuff now. But anyway, we're doing it big. We got a little screen now.
That's what messed me up. I got a monitor so we can watch and make sure that we're recording right. And I forgot to hit record.
Watching ourselves on there then. And now, like I said, bro, you were talking about being moguls now. I'm going to have to take you to rehab or something, bro. I think this fame thing is getting to you. But how was your week, man?
That was good, man. Like I was telling you, I kind of stepped away from working actively on the flip that I have right now. So I took this week to work on more mindset stuff. Yeah, just trying to get some goals sorted out and reaching out to like a business coach.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to get some budget.
Yeah.
Or some money in my budget to start working on some
I love it.
stuff.
More of that mindset, and like we've talked about it, I think looking at my a mastermind group and stuff. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I know I need that, and I was telling you too. I've been busy with my construction company. that definitely keeps me busy, which is good. And my guys love it, so they're going at it. But we were just talking about my song too.
Yeah.
The birthday song, man. That song made it to a German playlist in Spotify or on Spotify. This was a few weeks ago when we talked about it, and then now it made it to another playlist. And I'm pretty sure this one's here in the U.S. And it has some good names. Like I said, Justin Bieber, Fat Joe, and there's Little Billy the Kid from Lincoln, Nebraska on there. So, and I was telling you, it's funny because that song, I had the beat just sitting there for years. It was probably since 2012 or something. Like that dude has just been sitting there. And one day I was just like, man, I'm going to make like a funny blah, 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 whatever song. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, actually, this sounds pretty good. I did the hook, and then here we are. That song's that. So it's a great song if you're out partying, like at a party buzz or at the club. It's literally just shots and this and that. Like just have fun for your birthday. It's a birthday song. So check it out. Anybody listening,
Cool.
but
Congrats.
But what do you got? What book you got this week?
This week I have a book. Actually, I told you what I was going to do, but I decided to switch it up this time.
You did switch it up?
I did switch it up. It's actually a book that I just read for the second time because actually I read it this week because I was working on, again, like my mindset and the growth stuff.
Ooh, which one is it?
It's called Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy. So I don't know if you read it before.
I have not. I've heard of it though, but yeah, no, I haven't.
It's awesome, man. Like I forgot how much I liked the book from the first time I read it. So essentially he goes into, the book is actually really scientific. It goes a lot into like the psychology of how we as people rely so much on ourselves alone to accomplish these huge tasks, and how we don't really give enough credit to the power of like having accountability through other people, or more so like how our environment really controls our actions very subliminally. So like he goes into all these studies that have been done on people for like for example, like a smoker. He goes into an example of like how if you're able to change, or he calls it engineering your environment so that you can react differently. So if you're like a smoker, let's say you're supposed to be at work at 8 a.m. every day, and you get there at 7:50 because you want to have your cigarette, and so it's almost like a habit at that point. It is a habit at that point. So what you're saying is like once you realize that that's what you're doing, then there's so many things you can change about the environment so that you're not triggered to just do that automatically like you normally would. So if I want to quit smoking and I'm that person, I would, let's say I come in through the front door when I do that. Just seeing that front door coming into the building, it hits your brain. And it's like, oh, now I'm supposed to smoke. So it's these triggers and these little steps that make you do these things.
Yeah.
So you can change that up and go park on the side of the building, or like rather than giving yourself that extra 10 minutes to smoke, just get there right at 8 o'clock, or just don't give yourself enough time so that you want to smoke.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's really heavy on studies and science, but it's not like hard to understand. He puts everything in a really practical sense. And I like how he just references a ton of science on, again, the psychology of how we're really not that as strong as we are, as we think we are.
Yeah,
so really, we're not so much a product our nature.
So would it go
our
into like
nature.
how you are who you hang with type 2? This is
Yeah, he does talk
environment?
about that. And he also talks about having like I forgot how he put it, but essentially like not like I don't know if you ever heard the term like burning the boats. So it's essentially he goes into the story of like back I don't know, it was hundreds of years ago. There was supposed to be some story of some war that was going on, and the general rather than giving his army any options, he burned his own boats so that they had to win that war because they had no options. And so there's a term now, it's called burning the boats, and I've heard of it before, but it's basically it's like forcing yourself to perform at the highest level that you possibly can, because basically he says a lot of people just take things too easy, or they give themselves the easy way out, or lots of options to do what they don't want to do. So for example, like if you know you have a bad habit of eating ice cream at midnight, don't buy the ice cream. You know, so it's like these simple things that you but let's say you did have it or something, for whatever reason you had something that is tempting you. He's saying rather than tell yourself, oh, well, I'm not going to eat junk food at night, you tell yourself specifically, and even writing it down is more powerful, like I don't want to eat ice cream. So if I have the temptation to eat ice cream, I will instead drink a glass of water. So you have very specific actions for very specific scenarios.
So making sure you replace the bad habit with the good
And I'm probably
one.
not explaining it well, because honestly, the book isn't even that long, but he just packs it with so much information. And that's why I read it the second time, because I remember, and even this time I took notes. So I, again, like I said, that kind of went with my theme for this week for what I was working on with myself.
And it's important to basically, like what you said, like I'm a big believer that you should probably read whatever books, like I said, the Think and Grow Rich book. That's the first book I listen to every beginning of January. Like I have to start the year with that book. It's a 10-hour, 11-hour book or whatever, but you know, after like sometime in January, I'm done with it. And I still pick up stuff even after all these years. I still pick up a thing that I missed before. So I'm proud of you, man. That's good.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. Like I said, I might read it again this week just to kind of just to get it really, because that's kind of I really feel that's going to be my focus going forward.
Yeah,
a lot of mindset stuff because I really do feel that, you know, you and I are both big believers in the law of attraction. So I really feel like if I get my mind right and I get around the right people, and things are going to just fall.
That's a good pick. I always tell people, it's like, and I'm sure you've heard this before, but I kind of put my own twist. Like if you hang out with 5 crackheads, you're going to be the sixth one. And obviously the opposite. If you hang out with 5 millionaires, you're going to be the sixth one. So you choose. You want to be a crackhead or a millionaire?
So Willpower Doesn't Work by Benjamin Hardy.
Nice. All right, cool. Well, who do we have today, man? We have a special guest today.
Rebekah.
Bring her in. Let's go.
We're back.
Did I interrupt you earlier? That was pretty good, right?
That was a good one.
But we saw Billy the Kid, and then Dan, and then who do we have in the building, man? And let them know.
Introduce yourself. Go ahead.
I'm Rebekah Schmitz. I am the owner of 517 Properties. Also, my website is the Overall REI Gal, and that's where you can see pretty much everything I do: flips, rentals, short-term rentals, all that kind of fun stuff.
All right.
Awesome. And so let's take it back. I want to take it back before these big things that you're doing. Like, where did you start? Where are you from? Let's start there. Where are you from?
I'm technically right from this city, so Lincoln, Nebraska, and the surrounding towns. So, like, I grew up in Lincoln and Douglas and Firth and Roca. These are all places within about 20 minutes or so, depending on how fast you're going.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. But that's where I grew up. And then once I graduated, I spent a year as a nanny on the East Coast because you had to get out of your hometown.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happened, I got into the service. I was married at the same time.
What branch?
I was Army.
Army, cool.
Yeah. So I kind of did all that. And then I was always trying to get out of here. And just life circumstances always kind of brought me back in. Went through a divorce back in 2012. And that brought me here and working 3 jobs. And I just got my real estate license, right?
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I didn't know anybody at that point.
How did you, why real estate? Like, why did you choose the license?
Okay. So originally I was planning on moving to Colorado. So we were going to be stationed in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I'm like, oh man, I'm going to become an agent. I've always wanted to be a real estate agent. I love houses ever since I was like, like this. I watch This Old House.
Oh,
with
I
my
love
dad.
that show. I love that show.
I love it. Like, I actually watched an old episode where they went to the Kohler factory when they were pulling out those raspberry. Like, they're like, these are our new line. I'm like, wow, this is an old episode. It's so fun. But no, I always knew that I loved houses, and I thought, okay, well, someday maybe I'll fix them up, but for right now, I'll be an agent.
Wait, and how old are you then?
I started watching about the time I was, I think I remember watching the first episode was about 8 or 9, maybe.
I have never known of a child
Seriously,
that watches that
seriously.
show. Wow.
Well, and that's what I
Ask
was
me
going to
how many
ask.
channels we got.
And
that was
that's
like a
what I
PBS thing, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
that's right.
it was. So we got PBS and we got Fox 42.
Right after Sesame Street.
I was
still
watching
this
Rugrats, bro. That's what I was watching.
You had that cable, though.
And that leads me to that question I was going to ask. Was your family part, like, did they do real estate that it got your attention too, or?
Yeah, actually, it was kind of interesting because when I was 9 years old, my dad bought a foreclosure out in Firth. It was a 2-1 built in 1900.
Oh, wow.
Just this little box, no garage, nothing, crawl space. And he bought for $20,000. And my mother was kind of like, what did you do? Right? So, oh, don't worry, I'm going to fix it up. So I would go off my dad on the weekends because we bought it and we worked on it for about 4 months before we actually moved in. And we ended up adding an addition at some point. We paid somebody to do that part. But I remember going with my dad and we did all the tear out. We're tearing the old carpet out.
Yeah.
You know, my dad's doing the plumbing and I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a plumber. And he's like, okay, let's go to the crawl space. We got to do the underside. I'm like, okay, cool. And then there was cobwebs and spiders. And I realized, I don't really want to be a plumber. This isn't my thing. And so, you know, I'm like the whole time I'm like this and trying to
Are
get
you
into
scared
stuff.
of mice?
Oh, no, not. It's just spiders, man.
See, I don't understand that.
I
Like,
can
if
do
you
snakes
put
and
a mice or a spider, I'll go with the spider for sure.
Oh, heck no. All the money in the world. My dad and I just had this conversation. He goes, would you stick your hand into a jar of spiders, like, for 5 minutes?
Well, if you put it that way.
And I was like, not all the money in the world.
Right.
No, sorry guys. Anyone out there, I'm not going to do it. Not all the money in the world. I had drawn the line. But no.
We're going to have a Fear Factor episode.
Yeah.
But no, it just started there. You know, I started seeing like, whoa, because when we first got it, I was like, oh my gosh, you're taking me away from my friends.
Yeah.
We're going
And
to
how
go on
old
this
were you
thing.
at this?
I was 9.
Oh, okay. So,
I
wow.
just turned 9, and I was really angry at my parents at this point. But I got into it, helped them out, and there was just something that sparked in me. And then I started really watching This Old House with my dad, and I really loved it. And it always stuck with me because then the next house they bought when I was 17 was another foreclosure auction kind of thing, and it was a lady who lived there till she was like 95, was a chain smoker. They got like the walls, you know, they're like that
Yellow.
mustard
Yeah.
yellow kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
You just had white to the trim and you got the yellow paint.
Oh,
You're good.
you know what? That wasn't cool at that point. It almost was. We were in a few years. Yeah, no, I don't remember how many. Like, I don't know how many gallons of Kills we used.
I bet. Jeez.
I don't know.
So you got your license. How did that go? So did you? Is that your first thing then after the 3? So you're still working 3 jobs?
I got that,
Mhm.
and within about 2 months of getting that, I was already working a job, got that, and then things went down, and I had to get another job to support my real estate because I was at a place that was a really good place, but it charged you a lot per month. So I ended up working a job to cover the fees.
So you got to pay to be an agent?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
You did it?
At that time,
So I know they pay
broker
like part
fee.
of their commission,
Yeah.
but I know like it was like a monthly thing. Like,
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I was close to $500 a month at that
Wow.
point, and I was like, oh gosh, I've got like,
Yeah.
I'm a single mom, I gotta I gotta provide, and I'm like living in my parents' house now in the basement,
Mhm.
30 years old, playing World of Warcraft. Like I was the stereotypical guy. Like I'm just like, what's going on with my life, right?
Did you have a party-sized bag of Doritos?
Oh, man, I wish I did. It was probably Cool Ranch. It's probably Cool Ranch. It's my favorite. Yeah, so I kind of knew it couldn't really get any worse at that point. I felt like, boom, I'm just going to work my way out of it. I ended up going on a dating site after like all this kind of like had dissipated, and I found my husband now, and he's the best thing ever. He's actually the reason I put my license on hold after I went. Like I had it for 3 months active, put it on inactive.
Oh, wow.
And then a few years later, I'm watching I've been watching HGTV stuff forever, right? And he's like, I seen what you do because I did have a house in Texas with my previous spouse.
Mhm.
And I had fixed it up. And he's like, you could do really good things. You need to do this. It's like, okay, you can go do it. Like, not you can do it, but you can monetarily. We can do this. Like, you can go out there and pursue
awesome.
this. And I was like, oh, it was like really exciting and
Yeah.
really scary.
You sure he didn't just want to be a stay-at-home dad?
Oh, it still works. That didn't really work out for him.
Backfire.
That's awesome. And so is that when, like, what did you do then? Did you find a flip or a rental, or like what was your first step with that?
I started an LLC with, it was supposed to be my older sister and then her best friend. And what happened is this is back in 2015, about June of 2015. And my sister got cold feet. She is freaked out. You know, we're only a few years after everything kind of went to crap. And the market was starting to get hot. But she decided to pull out and not do it. I was like, well, this other gal's got the funds. I don't. I'm going to go with this other gal. We did do one flip together, but it was like, this is before I knew about Bigger Pockets. This is before I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was just like,
Or the Minority Report.
The Minority Report.
before.
It wasn't around
before.
here, so it was going to take a while.
I know. So as you can tell, I was sunk because of that. So we did end up making, I think I made like $5,000 on that flip after my split. And I was kind of like, oh man, I was there all the time.
Well, how long did that take you? And like, what did that kind of look like?
Okay, so that one was, we purchased that for, I believe that one was, I want to say 90 grand. It was close to the country club area. And we put I think around 30 in, and we sold it for 150. So after all of our closing costs and whatnot, it came to about, 5,000. And so I was like, okay, well, this is okay, but I was doing all the work. And I was the agent on it, and I didn't get commission because I put that as part of my responsibilities. So I was like, okay, well, this doesn't work for me because this is more of a, all me doing it, and it was supposed to be a 50-50. I mean, if you go in with like a silent partner and they're just like giving you stuff, but that's not the way we had it structured.
Yeah, we've been talking to Heavy about that lately.
Yes.
Like, and I always tell people, it's like, you can't eat on my table if you don't bring something to the table, and it's so true.
It is so true. And so that's what we just decided, hey, it's not going to work out for us. And then I waited a few months, and I was like, you know what? Let me talk to my banker. Let me see if I can do this by myself, because now they can see it. And they're like, you know what? We like what you did with that. We're going to give you a test run. And so my dad actually still had to co-sign for me because, I'm coming out of a divorce still like they, they kill you for a few years after a divorce.
Right.
Which I didn't know until my divorce. Divorce, just being divorced, like, hurts your credit.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, you quitter.
You quit.
200 points.
Yeah,
I
it hurts.
was like, oh, hey, I was just at like 720 for the first time. I was like, "Rrr."
Dang, I didn't know that.
Yeah, man, it's like kicking you when you're down already.
Yeah, it really
Well,
is.
I love my wife. I love you.
Yeah, don't be messing with that. So yeah, no, that's so I went out on my own. I did my first two, and it did take me a while because I was like, I'm going to do a lot of this myself. I found Bigger Pockets towards the middle of that year, and it really started helping. But I only got 2 done that first year in 2016 with my new LLC. And I made about $22,000 that year. So
did you fund them through the bank then?
I did. And so what they did is they were doing, at that time, SBA was still backing those loans. So they did a 75% ARV. So for those who don't know, that's the appraised repair value, or after repair value, So if I bought something for, we'll say like 100,000, and they're like, okay, we are actually, if I bought something for 75,000, and appraises out after I'm done with it for 100,000, I'm only gonna get the 75,000. So I want it to go past that. So in those cases, I had a lot of sweat equity because I got I think 10,000 and 15,000 money back at closing. So I didn't have to pay closing costs. It was all put into that. But I'm looking for scraps of wood. I'm like, oh, hey, free stuff. Let's see what I can do.
But that's kind of your personality too, though. Like, you like to just,
figure.
Because I know part of like your whole deal with the flips that you do is like reusing, or you have a fancier way of putting it.
Okay.
When you like repurpose things, I guess.
Yeah, I'm repurposing. I like to restore things.
Yeah.
So I like to give things a new home. Sometimes if I take something out, like if I find a 1900s home that was updated in the 50s, some of those have some really cool retro fixtures, but they don't belong in the 1900s home.
Mhm.
So I take them out, and much to my husband's like chagrin, I'll bring them back and I'll keep them in our storage area / basement dining room. Because I didn't have a garage. And he's like, so you can never use these lights anywhere? And light fixtures kind of became my thing. I love them. They really bring it up. But I try to save and restore. If I find an old door and it just speaks to me and it's got like, all the paint's peeling and everything, I'm like, oh, I can fix that. Right? I can restore that thing. I can give it new life.
So it's not necessarily just a financial thing.
Yeah.
It's just like I want to just
Like
repurpose these things.
and then the money kind of comes with it.
Yeah.
We were talking about it the other day where me and Dan were saying how not to overdo your flips too. You know what I mean? Where, I was telling him a story where I got in there. I'm like, all right, I'm going to rip this whole house apart. I'm going to put new, HVAC, and new windows, blah, blah, blah. Well, one of my guys with my construction business, he's like, dude, these windows, he's like, give me a day and I'll clean them up, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I come back and I'm like, okay, yeah, can you do that to all of them? He's like, of course. So I didn't end up doing brand new windows, and those windows were perfectly fine after he repaired them. And we were just talking about that, where
it's easy to go down that rabbit hole and just do too much,
Mhm.
especially with flips. I mean, so you hold a lot more.
Yeah.
So when you're renting something out, you don't put as much of that into it.
Mhm.
When you're flipping, you got to be a lot
Be like,
more.
You got to make it look like you.
Right.
And I used to do that too. The very first one, we would have made more money, but we redid the electrical, redid all the plumbing, got a new roof on, HVAC, I thought that every main mechanical part.
It'd be brand new.
Because we're coming out of really the crisis, right?
Yeah.
In 2008, in order to have that, those people who were doing flips, they were always replacing all the main systems, right? So we were still stuck in that. So in order to make that money, I had to show I have all these new things. But you're right, in the past 2 years, instead of getting windows, you get your window cleaner on. You're like, dang, those look better than the new ones, right?
And it's like, it's one of those where it's like, as long as it works,
Mhm.
because even the HVAC, that's been my biggest thing. Even like with a flip that I did, and now looking back, I'm like, why did I even change them out? And my agent told me that, like a bunch of people told me that, but it was just older, but they still worked. So anyways, you live and you learn.
Yeah. Have you ever argued with an appraiser too? And you're like, well, I put in a new furnace and a new AC, and they're like, do you have a house? I'm like, yeah. Like, is it expected to have HVAC and AC? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah. So that's normal.
God,
thing.
seriously.
You're not getting money. You're not getting extra money for
seriously. That's literally what I got told.
So if it works,
they're like, well,
that's good enough.
And the same conversation actually came about, and there was a fence that the neighbor owed that was bowing in, and they're like, you need to fix that fence. That's why I'm like, so actually, that's not even my fence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why did that even? It's crazy.
That is crazy. You're like, okay. I'm like, so the new plumbing and new electrical? They're like, no, you're expected to have those things working. And I'm like, well, shoot. Okay. So then I stopped doing that unless I absolutely had to. So I started looking at it from, at first, I think when you first start doing flips, you're excited. You're like, oh, everything's going to be perfect. It's going to be awesome. And then you get this check and you're like, oh, wow, it's like $40,000. And then you realize you got to pay back everybody and your credit cards.
You're
and
hurting Dan's tear. He's going to get it tatted.
Yeah, I know. It looks so
Yeah, it
I
hurts.
think you have that picture. You're like, oh, this
Been
is
there, done
actually,
that. Yeah.
But that you live and learn. And because you want to figure out when you do those flips, how do I make my money? But how do I still give a good product? Because I don't want people
That's
to
such
find me.
a hard thing
Thin
to
line.
do.
Yeah, it's
because
a thin line
you
right
do
there.
want to give a good product,
Mhm.
but you don't want to just blow your whole budget.
Below your budget. Mm-hmm.
So do you think that's something that, like you said, comes with experience, or?
I think so. Because, when we go to the meetups and everything, you hear people on what they're going to do. And I even on our Facebook site, you'll be like, oh, I need a new furnace and a new AC. I'm like, why don't you just offer a 1-year warranty? If you clean it, service it, add the warranty, boom, that's money in the bank. Especially right now when people are not doing, a lot of people are not doing the inspections, right? And they're buying them as is. And I always think, do I want these people to find me? Because they can find me online in 10 years and be like, so we saw what you did and you did this instead of that. And I'm like, I never want that to be the case. I want people to love it and stay in it. But really, it goes back to, I see a lot of new people and they go overboard. you know, and I did that too. And I think it comes with the excitement.
Mhm.
And I think it really comes. So some people who are doing this part of passion, that's going to be a problem. And the people who come in as a business are usually the people who have no problems,
Yeah.
but also they're not getting top dollar either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like this fine line, you know,
Mhm.
because if you say, hey, I'm using the same exact paint on every room and every
Mhm.
floor and everything I ever do, and it's all the same, well, guess what? That's what all the new builders are doing too.
Yeah.
It doesn't really differentiate you.
Right. And I do know people who do that.
Mhm.
But to me, like, that's just a different model,
Yeah.
and it works for them.
And it
like,
works for them.
like I said, like you said, you're not going to get top dollar for that,
Mhm.
but you're probably able to get in and get out a
Yeah.
lot quicker than I could or you could.
Yeah.
I mean, especially you, because you really like specialize in your stuff.
I'll stay too long.
But yeah, I mean, but for me, like I said, I think we're similar in the sense that we want to provide such a great product for people, and we want it to just be like gorgeous,
Mhm.
but also good quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, you obviously you pay on the front end for that, and I think we could probably sell a house like that for more.
Mhm.
But really, at the end of the day, you've spent so much more anyway. So are you really making more money than that person that does the same
Yeah.
paint anywhere? You know, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it just depends.
Have you
Yeah.
ever done literally what I call the lipstick flip? Right? Meaning you go in there and all you do is change out the paint and the carpet.
I've planned to before, but it didn't
and then you
work out
feel
that way.
dirty afterwards. You're like, oh my gosh, I just did this. Right? I did that. And then I was like, that took me 2 weeks. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel
Yeah,
dirty.
yeah.
I feel dirty, but I love it. It
I
was
think you did that with a
really
rent only recently, haven't you? Like,
Yeah, well, and actually, my uncle. It's funny that you say
What's
that.
the
'cause in
address so that the
Spanish-
people listen?
You find that
in
one.
Spanish, my uncle actually says the makeup. Like he says makeup, putting makeup on. And he says that overall, like in construction, he's like, you know, that's really all it is. You put makeup, make it look nice and pretty, obviously. But
Yeah, those are nice. Those are the ones that are usually newer because obviously I am not gonna cover up. I think
exactly.
that's
Oh yeah.
unethically. It's
Oh,
just
yeah, for
unethical for people to cover up real problems they
Oh,
know
yeah,
about. Like once you know about it, you better be taking care of
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
You know?
Leaks or
And I
yeah.
think that's unfortunate because there's people like us get a bad rap because
Yeah.
there are a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
investors out there
Yeah.
that do that.
People on the internet, they're like, "Oh, you flip houses? You're one of those, you know, jerks."
And seriously,
They think you're the
you
worst
hear
person.
that.
Yeah.
You definitely hear
Yeah.
that. And it's funny because if you look at like most of the flippers, I think try their best. You know what I mean? You want to put that product out there. So a lot of times you get a better quality house with a flipper than buying it from for sale by owner,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
or somebody that lived there or whatever. So you're licensed then. So then you just gave it up. Then like, what's your
Sort of.
mindset on that? Like, well, answer that first because
Okay.
go ahead.
So it can stay in the state of Nebraska. It can
Mhm.
stay inactive up to 2 years. You still have to
Okay.
do your continuing ed. I let that go for almost 2 years. I reinstated it. I went with the place and I thought, okay, I'm going to be able to do this. And then I realized, and that was my first flip, that I'm trying to flip and I'm trying to be the agent. And it left this kind of, it's kind of like most agents will understand. It's almost like a dual representation. Like I'm representing the buyer, I'm representing the seller, which is what happened. And I was the one who did the flip. And I thought, gosh, you know what? This puts a lot of, you know, extra stuff on me that could go wrong, right?
Mhm.
Plus, I'm still trying to find the other deals. And I thought, you know what? For a few thousand, I can literally take this off my plate. There won't be an emotion because I have literally, before I did this for a few of my houses, I literally said no to an offer
Oh wow.
because they wanted me to fill in my shiplap lines.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I had shiplap.
Wait.
Yeah.
Well, first, why would you fill that in?
I know, no. This was like my fourth or fifth one. And they're like, we love the house. Can you fill in these lines, these gaps? I'm like, but that's shiplap.
That's
Yeah.
the whole point.
That's the whole point.
Like
and
cocking
they
and-
literally brought somebody over and said, oh, it's going to cost them like $6,000 to fix it. And I was like, I'm sorry.
Well, damn,
I
how much
can't.
shiplap did you use?
I know.
It was
the whole
the whole
house.
living
The whole boat. The whole house and the whole boat.
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot. Not gonna lie. So they just didn't like it, and so I learned that, you know. But yeah. So after that, I
So
was like,
hold on, I want to know. Did they end up coming back and buying it, or
no.
they walked away?
They
All right,
didn't.
go
I
ahead.
got another offer at that same time.
Nice.
And well,
that
it was like a
actually
day
enjoy what
later.
shiplap is.
Yeah, and I was like, you know, actually, I have another offer.
Shiplap.
It wasn't even as good because
Yeah.
that's the problem. I realized my emotions were into that.
Yeah.
Like some people can do that. Some people can do it. I'm not. I'm an emotional person.
Mhm.
I fall in love with my houses. You know that.
I do know that.
And so like now I get to hear about all the things they don't like, and I did not like that. I needed that filter. And so I started having different agents represent me because something clicked between listening to podcasts and everything.
That's pretty cool that you were that self-aware to know that,
Mhm.
hey, I am too attached to these. I need to step away. A lot of people would be like, this is my baby and I don't
Yeah.
care what, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I didn't want to be that. I want to make sure that it was a good transaction and smooth. And the biggest part about that people don't understand is when you have other agents looking for you, now you're getting more stuff brought to you.
Mhm.
So that was kind of the thing. It's
So
like,
you went from not being competition with them, basically. Okay.
not competition. Plus, they're going to bring me their off-market stuff,
Mhm.
and that's what started happening. It's kind of a fine line because you have those agents that you love, right?
Mhm.
And I have a lot of really good friends who are agents, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. And so what I ended up doing is like, you know what? Hey, I'm going to like no holds barred. After I had an agent with me for about a year and a half, they started representing other people. And I realized that I wasn't their only person. And I felt like, man, I kind of want people to want me. I don't
Mhm.
want to have to like try to sell myself to a realtor. So I started, making lots of dates with realtors and be like,
Mhm.
hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. If you can find me a house and it's off market and we get it at a good price, I'll let you represent me on the sell. So that was like,
Yeah.
and that's when my business started to explode because all of a sudden I'm getting all these people calling me like,
Deals,
hey, I got
yeah.
this house. I got this house. I need some work. I got this house. I need some work. It's not going to clear FHA. It's not going to clear VA. And so they're actually bringing it to me at that point.
So what I've had people approach me before and ask me like, oh, do you work with an agent when you find houses? And I don't. Like, I love to just meet people, reach out to them directly. So I don't really know that side of using an agent. Honestly, even on the selling side, I've only used them once. But what do you look for when you're, as an investor, you're looking to buy houses? What type of traits or personality or whatever strengths, weaknesses do you look for? I guess you don't look for weaknesses. But what things do you look
Yeah,
for?
look for the weaknesses.
What do you look for in an agent that would be investor friendly?
I'm looking for on a person who is on a buy side. I'm looking for a really hungry agent because most of the selling agents I use, they're not buyers agents,
Mhm.
right? And so on the selling side, I am looking for a person who has those little extras. Maybe they'll take my pictures. They're social media. They have to be social media. They have to be advertising me. And one of the things I like is having a person who's in a big brokerage that goes to all their meetings and that gets that word out earlier. There's some rules and stuff that goes on with that. But I'm looking for a person who's not overly busy. I want a person who's been an agent for, on the sell side, they have to be an agent for at least 5 years usually to represent. I've had some other ones, but it works better. I'm looking for a really good negotiator. The number one thing I'm looking for is I want a person who, when they're representing me, represents me well. They're a bulldog, but at the end of the day, the person who's bringing the buying party, they want to take my agent out for drinks because they negotiated without burning bridges.
Mhm.
And you'll see a lot of agents will burn those bridges because they're a bulldog and they're going to get it. But at the end of the day, I want people to not avoid my listing because I'm represented by a person, if that makes sense.
So what makes that agent a good negotiator? What do you think?
Oh, it's kind of difficult. Like there's people. I'm a good negotiator when it comes to food. Okay, if we're gonna go out and I really want Italian food and you really want Chinese food, I will make you want Italian food.
I thought you were like negotiating the restaurant.
No, but you will at the end of the day be like, dang, actually,
You're right, I do
your
want.
idea, right? At the end of the day, you're happy to go with me. But when it comes to, like I said, what comes in the houses, it's different. And so that's the agent I'm looking for. I want them to come with the best interests, but they're also going to do a give and take, right? So I want them to say, hey, you know what? There's this cracked window. They're gonna like overlook, there's some missing, whatever there is, or there's a crack in the cement outside. As long as you take care of this pain, they're gonna buy it, and I appreciate that.
Right.
So I like the give and take. I don't want a person. If that person's gonna say, "I'm gonna get everything for you and give nothing to the buyer," they're gonna be a bad agent for you.
Gotcha.
So with having your license, what are the pros and cons? Because we know a lot of agents that do the investing on the side or vice versa, or they have a license just to do the investing, but they're more into the investing side. So if you could give me the pros and cons on that.
Okay, so biggest pro obviously is MLS access. Right. You get to go on there, and I actually did let my license lapse this year, which I'm kind of kicking myself for because I'm about to move and to another state, and I'm probably going to actually pick my license up again because I do miss that MLS.
Yeah.
Because what you'll find is, okay, so with the housing market, it's crazy, right? The moment something goes on there, boom, right? And I was expecting agents to do that for me, but they're so busy that unless you're looking out for yourself, really, as an investor, you're going to miss out. So I really miss that MLS listing. And plus you get to go show yourself. Hey, I'm going to go show myself my house whenever you want. And that's big pros. Cons are, if you're thinking about like getting into wholesaling, that's going to be your biggest con because you're going to have a lot of brokerage issues, a lot of
can you explain real quick what wholesaling is?
Okay, so wholesaling would be like everyone's seen the We Buy Houses and We Buy Ugly Houses. And so what usually happens is there's a person, and they can be one and the same or they can be different. It can be a person, and they usually don't have their license. They're putting out flyers and they're calling their leads, they're setting up appointments, and then they get this house and they say, okay, guy, I'm going to buy your house for, X amount. And I'm going to buy it from you, but I'll probably bring an investor to come look at it or a set of investors who might purchase it from me. That is as an assignable contract. So the person you're buying from it knows that they're going to have this house sold no matter what in the specified time. If they need to sell it in a week, 2, 3, whatever it is. And so let's pretend I'm the wholesaler. So I get it under contract. I get my list of all my buyers I have out there. And I say, hey, I've got a house at 123 Main Street. It's this much money. And this is how much it needs in work. And everyone's going to look at it this day. And so then I come back, here's the buyer, and they say, okay, I'm going to buy it from you. You bought it for 100,000. I'm buying it for 110, let's say. So the wholesaler sells the contract to the person who's actually buying the house. And so that wholesaler at closing is going to get a check for $10,000. Now, this is where it becomes a problem because this can be considered a commission. It could also be like if you're advertising for this house to find the buyer after you have it, it can be against a lot of real estate laws, fair housing laws. You can't pretend you're a real estate agent. You could be practicing real estate without a license, and you will get a cease and desist from your local association. So now take it back, say, I am a realtor, and on the side, I don't tell my broker, or maybe my broker knows, and the broker's the person who's in charge of all their agents. Now that broker gets a cut at closing. So if you're going and you're buying houses and you're selling houses and you're never giving a broker part of that can be a problem too. That can be a license law thing. So it makes it difficult. There are ways to do it, and some states have different ways of dealing with it. But it just creates this kind of, what is it going to be? And then, as we know, real estate's immersive. You can be a Jack and Jill of all trades, or you can focus in on your one thing. Does it make more sense for you to have, 5 flips going and not do wholesaling and not be doing all your flyers and everything? You're making your money. It depends on where you want to be. And some people can do a lot. And I think when you compare yourself, say, oh, I can be a wholesaler and I can be a flipper and I can be a realtor and I can do all these things, you're going to burn out.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to burn out. There are people who can do that. They hustle. But really what it comes down to is you're playing with fire. Yeah. And I prefer not to do that. So I let my license lapse because I was starting to find some off-market deals and I wasn't wholesaling them, but I just didn't want there to be, any conflicts there.
So the majority of your deals, how have you found them?
Kind of everywhere. Word of mouth. I've had people talk to me on Facebook. I've had, family members, friends tell me about, somebody's, the grandparents are going to assisted living. I've had agents bring deals to me. I've bought for sale by, I've done the gambit. I've done seller financing, lease options, whatever works. And kind of just knowing how many you want to do is where you're at. So I hope that answers your question.
What's the most you've done in a year?
For flips? I think,
and flips and just overall projects.
Oh gosh. actually 2020 was my craziest year.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah.
That was crazy because everyone was throwing their deals at me.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
oh no one's going to buy anything. And so all of a sudden I was flush with properties. And I think, and some of them fell into 2021, but I believe I did, let's see how many I did, 3, 4, 5 flips last year. And then I had some hotels, which hotels would be like if I buy a house for $100,000 and I do nothing to it and I wait a few months because I bought it under market, then I put it back on the market for 130, and it might not be a lot, but yeah, and I did
Hotel,
5.
huh?
Hotel.
Oh.
Hotel.
Like Holiday Inn.
She bought the Marriott.
I bought it for $100,000. It was an okay deal.
Wow, that's awesome. And yeah, no, that's great. So it's just getting creative.
Yeah,
basically.
I think I did altogether. I think I probably did about 10 different deals last year.
Nice. And then, so you're more flipping than, have you held any for rentals?
Yes. And I've kind of, I think everybody, when you're first doing this, like, I didn't have anybody to tell me this. I was, I feel like we're kind of the beginnings of the whole Bigger Pockets community. We all we're the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just testing the waters. I bought a duplex a few years ago. It was very bad. I ended up selling that after holding it only for about 1.5 years. And I was like, I don't know if I want to keep any of these. And then
Well, why didn't you want to keep them?
Let's say due diligence. Let's just say that.
So you missed some stuff that.
I missed a lot of stuff. Yeah, and it was going to cost me. It cost me a lot of money. If you've ever heard of an estoppel, have you ever heard of an estoppel certificate?
I want to say I have. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I'm guessing you could probably explain it.
So let me tell you guys this. Okay, let me tell you this. If you are buying a rental that has renters in it, and you get that rent roll that says, oh yeah, everyone's current, it's gonna be great, no one's behind, everything's great, and you go off of just full rent roll they send you, and you don't have an estoppel certificate, you in trouble. Because that's what happened to me. I had like 2 tenants who hadn't paid in months.
Oh, wow.
And so I was evicting 2 sets of tenants, and one of them called the city and got all this stuff because they didn't want to leave, right? And if I had just requested an estoppel certificate, which I had no idea what that was, it pretty much, it says, hey, I want to see your bank account. You don't have to show me your things, but I want to actually see that it's coming. So now you're certifying that they actually got the money, where it came from, and you know that they're current. Because otherwise, you're just, somebody can be like,
and that's obviously from the current owner that you're supposed to get that from.
The current owner.
If you don't request that, they don't necessarily give it to you.
And it's really good, and everyone should really start requesting it because.
So if you had requested it, and let's say they lied about it somehow,
I could take them to
then
court.
you could take them to court, and so you wouldn't have necessarily lost.
Yeah.
That money.
So there was a lot, and of course there was a lot of other extra damage that I didn't know about. We're talking like termite damage and plumbing, and then the city, when they came out, when the upper tenant had called, they're like, oh, by the way, your paint's peeling. Now, mind you, I'm on a block and all the houses have peeling paint, but I have 3 months to get it done.
Yep.
So yeah, I was painting out there and scraping.
So did that kind of just leave a sour taste in your mouth?
It left a sour taste. And then I just had like one renter after another, and that one had bed bugs, which I didn't.
Wow.
My first rental I had the whole thing. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not set to be a landlord. I'm not doing this. But you kind of get away from, it's like, you guys don't know this, but like after you have a baby, you're like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. Right? Never. And then like, right after you have the baby, you're like, you almost forget. You forget almost everything. But like after like a few years, you're like, yeah, I can have another baby. Because you just forget, right? It's kind of like that with rentals. And I did make more mistakes. I think we always make mistakes, whether it's a flip or whatever. But at one point I was up to about 7 doors, and then that was in 2019. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to transition some of these to short term. And then it's kind of like everything happened at the same time. It went from me going, man, this is the best year of my life, to, you know what? Everything's crazy. Everything's turned upside down. What do I really want with my life? And then my husband's job that had been remote because of the pandemic said, oh, hey, by the way, you can permanently stay remote. And we're like, oh, wait, our whole 15-year plan has just changed on us. And this was in January of this year.
Oh,
wow.
Right? And so it went from, okay, I'm going to have all these extra doors, because my goal was to have 10 doors by the end of 2020, actually 2021. And it was like, oh, wait, I can move. I can do whatever I want. And I'm like reading books on, long distance real estate investing. But I didn't want to do it. Like it was out of my comfort zone to do something like that and not be close by.
Mm-hmm.
And that works for some people. They're like really like they're numbers people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a heart person, so I got to be like close by. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sell off my portfolio here. I'm going to sell off my portfolio. I'm going to sell off my short-term rentals, which at the time we were having this regulation that was on hold during the pandemic, and I knew it was going to start back up. And so pretty much what happened is I had, flips going, short-term rentals, and I did have some long-term rentals, like regular single-family homes. And then I do have one more conversion duplex that's a lease option.
Nice.
I sold everything except my lease option and two of my single-family homes right now. One just kind of, I don't know what I'm going to do with that right now. You guys know about that one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I kind of sold everything off. We started shopping states, I guess. And we had some stuff that we wanted. And I go, you know what really makes my heart sing? After about 2 years of having short-term rentals, I realized I like short-term rentals way better than flips because I actually got to bring them up to the nines. And people enjoyed that. And I got to hear their feedback.
Well, that's a huge benefit to short-term rentals because it's almost like a hybrid between a flip and a rental because I mean obviously you're renting it, but you also have to make it look really nice and it has to be great quality because it's getting used constantly,
Yes.
But what's also nice about it is that it gets cleaned out all the time, so the maintenance on it is really great.
So good.
But before we get into that real quick, when you do the flips, because I want you to kind of speak a little bit more to your actual approach when you have a flip. I know you like to do small town like stuff, which terrifies me. Like I'm not a small town guy. And I did one, and you know how that worked. Like it didn't work. So,
you got some collector's cans.
Yeah, I got some cool Harley Davidson cans. It was like a hoarder that was. You saw it was bad. But so like most people run away from those 120-year-old houses, but you just like run. You're like the firefighter of those houses. You just want to save them. Like what is it about them? And then when you get it, what makes it special once you're ready to sell it?
Oh gosh. Okay. So like some people, and I have a dog, so I love dogs. This is like if you're a pet person, like, when you go to the pound and you see all the dogs and like parents tell you can only have one. You want all of them, right? But the city's like, yeah, you can only have 3, right? But you want all of them. And I start like when I drive, I really have to be the driver because what happens is I'm like, oh, I want that one and that one and that one. And I just want to like hug them. Like I feel bad. They like look at me and they're like, save me. And I just like want to I want to like tree huggers, but I want to hug the house. Sometimes I'm like, it's okay, baby.
You need an HGTV show called House Huggers. House Huggers.
I do. I like sometimes I'm like, I'll like rub the post. I'm like, oh, it's funny too because when I see a house I like, so small towns, I was, raised in small towns and forever small towns been dwindling in population because, people moved to the big cities. That's where they had to go. But because of the internet, people, even before the pandemic, they can work from anywhere if they have those jobs. And so I started noticing, we have some of, Hickman, obviously, Firth, all these small towns have started booming in the past like 10, 15 years. And Douglas is a place I lived from the time I was like, I don't remember, I was like 3 to almost 5, or I was 5. And I do actually have all these memories, right? And this town, when the school closed in the 80s, the elementary, the town just kind of like, and it was just kind of like a ghost town. Like the old people stayed there till they died. There wasn't a whole lot of new people coming in. And then I got this tip from one of my roofers. He's like, hey, my mom owns this place in Douglas. She bought it, a few years ago. She was going to fix it up, but it's a lot of work. And at this point, the most I've done is like redone like some electrical boxes, maybe like the plumbing and some bad roofs, taking a wall down, honestly, peanuts compared to this house. I get there and this house is like, it's straight. Okay, it's straight. It's straight. It's missing a few windows. There's a hole in the roof on one side, and the addition, I think it was their bathroom, had like completely fallen in the back. Wow. And she's like, it's been like abandoned for 15 years, and it's on a crawl space. And I go inside, and I'm like, right?
Did you hug it?
Yeah, I saw the wood floors. I saw the wood floors in the living room. I'm like, this is gonna be my house. And at that point, I was like, I need to save this house. like, I need to save this house. I bought that for $9,000.
$9,000.
Yeah, $9,000. I don't even ask me how. I'm not going to tell you how much I put into that house. I did sell it for $200,000, $205, I think. But I pulled a lot of money. That was a brand new house when I was done.
Yeah.
It was down to the studs. So, but I loved it because that was a house that was going to die. You know, that house is going to die. And I want, like, you know, if just a few of these houses people actually put some pride into, I could bring this town back. There's some people who really love this town. I could bring in the town. Townspeople, they drive by, they'd be waving at me, and I'd wave back, or sometimes I just wave at them.
I noticed the same thing when I had a house in a small town. I had neighbors come by, and they were actually like thanking me, like for like at the time I was planning to do kind of what you were talking about. But I actually ended up selling it to a guy who owns a construction business, who was able to do what I was going to do a lot cheaper. And so the part of the agreement was that you just don't demolish the house. Just like renovate it, you know?
Oh my gosh, that would have horrible.
So I have to go by and check it out. He actually sent me a DM on Instagram a while back. And he's like, hey, dude, look, we got it down to the studs. And so I should go check it out. But yeah, but it was cool because the neighbors would come by and just like, oh, I'm so glad. Like, this house obviously has been an eyesore, but they obviously want it to just come back to life. What style was this house?
So this was actually like a farmhouse, and actually, of course, great because farmhouse is totally in.
Huge.
This was like 2.5 years ago when I started on this thing. So it was moved from its original. It was a farmhouse. It was a farmhouse, and then they moved that house into the town in the 70s, is what I was told. So it was the only redeeming quality, because if they hadn't, a house needs to be shored up to move. So it was put on a new, all the stuff was straight. So you go in this house and you think you're going to do, you know what I'm talking about. You think you're going to do this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is straight as some houses built in the 50s, right? So that was the redeeming quality about that. And it just, I love bringing new life back into these houses. It fills my soul, because before I was like, I went from 3 jobs down to 1 job, and I went to an office job, and I was working 40 plus hours a week, and I thought I made it. I'm white collar now. And then I realized white collar wasn't me. I'm blue collar. I love like getting my hands dirty. I love going to the supermarket and having like some old lady look at me and be like, you got something on your face. I got something all over me.
I don't think a lot of white collar people watch This Old House.
That's true. That's the thing, is like, I got joy. I get joy. Like when other flippers flip something and they keep those like original things, because I do. I like DM people. I'm like, I will kill you if you throw out that fixture. I will literally come there and take it off your hands. Please don't throw it out.
So I remember when you were talking, I think you were talking to me about that Douglas project. And I don't know if you ever ended up doing it, but you had mentioned making like a custom like book for the people that were going to buy. Did you ever do that?
I sort of did. Yeah, I wasn't.
That's just awesome marketing. Can you talk about that? Because I feel anyone who wants to flip out, and I've been telling myself I should do that. But I never do. But I think it's just a great idea. You should just talk about it.
Okay, so, and I didn't do this like completely like how I was going to, but I did do it. But the goal for me is to get like a binder, 3-ring binder. And I'd started on this, and I kept a lid. This is when I was still buying 1-gallon ones. So I kept the lid that has, where it's from, what colors, all that stuff. And then I put that like in a little plastic binder part of there. And then be like, okay, this is your living room. Okay, or living room trim, right? And then be like, oh, by the way, this was done to this room, and this was done, and here's your plants. Here's what was planted here. You have original wood floors. They've been refinished. Sometimes, like in this case, I actually was like, okay, just use wood floor cleaner. But I told them pretty much everything they would need to know. Like if your flooring goes
out. Like a user manual to the house.
It was a user manual.
That's awesome.
And I like to give them a little story.
Yeah.
Like I did keep to the story. So I have kept to the stories with a few of the houses, like not all of them, because sometimes I buy a house just because I'm like, okay, I kind of like this house, and I get into it. I'm like, okay, well, I still like it. But the houses that I like really fall in love with, those people get a letter from me, because I'm like, okay, this is why I bought the house. This is what I did. I hope you love it as much as I did.
Nice.
And it's been really fun. I've gotten a few letters from other people.
I think what I love about that, so I went to school and it was for business, but I minored in marketing. And as I've been doing this stuff, I've realized that I really do enjoy marketing. And when you told me that, I was like, that is freaking genius.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And not only so much that, you give the buyers such a cool experience in buying it. Like you've created a story, like you said, on this house. But also what I thought was cool too was most likely those people will have like a housewarming party.
Yeah.
And what do you think they're gonna have?
Yeah,
they're gonna
yeah.
have your binder, your
Yeah.
book with. I'm hoping you put your like information in there. You know, like.
I
Well, that takes down the whole.
Edit this out.
I just learned something.
Well, no, but so maybe going forward. But like, if it was me putting my marketing hat on, I would do everything you did, and then have like a headshot of me, like, hey, my name is Dan, blah blah. This
That's
is Dan.
creepy.
And put the
That's
story.
pretty creepy.
Did you say that's creepy?
but I want you to see like, hey, there's a person behind this.
Right,
It's
right,
not just like, hey, we have this. This is the palette that we use for color. Like, there was a lot of thought and intention behind it, and especially nowadays with the HGTVs and the DIY channels and all that, people want more than just 4 walls and a roof.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
The story.
So you're welcome for that tip.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And you are right about that. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When you do something, it doesn't even cost that much to add those little pops.
Yeah,
It just takes a little bit manpower to like redesign. And I like to take my houses and keep them in the style of that house, but update them. Okay. So I'm not going to have like, guess what? You're going to work by candlelight. But that's what I do. I'm like, shiplap wall, wallpaper wall.
No electricity for you.
No electricity for you, though. You can have shiplap, but there's no electricity. But it's just, I think if people would start flipping in the mind of, let me take this timeless design, keep it timeless, but just add some pops, it will be timeless for a long time, and it will be something that everyone wants, because people want to feel like when they come home, like, this is my zen, this is my happy place, this is where I'm comfortable. I don't want just 4 walls.
Yeah.
And I think that's where women in particular in this business do such a great job. That men, like, we don't think that way. We don't have those like thoughts. We don't think that deeply into it. We want to get in, get out. We think about the numbers, But like, women are just like, well, how are you gonna feel when you walk in here? Like, I don't give a damn how you're gonna feel. Like, so it's like, I mean, I do, but I don't as much, So I think that's really great. And you and I have talked about partnering up on stuff, because I would love to like do the numbers and do the blah blah, but then you tell me about the feelings, because that would be
you tell me about the feelings.
because and typically like people that buy houses are like some kind of couple or something like that, and at the end of the day, the wife is probably the one that's gonna make that decision, So it's really
and how do you? So based on what you've done, what do you think is, because we hear a lot, where it's like, oh, okay, so and. Perfect example, what you were saying, that you're moving out, doing other things out in another market. How has it been with your experience going out of town and doing these flips? Like, do they sell fast? Do they take longer than like
demand?
the big city?
I mean, I wonder about the demand.
Oh, yeah. I have had so many people ask me, hey, do you have another house in Douglas coming up?
Oh, wow.
You would not believe it. People want to live in small towns. They want to get away
from the city.
They want their kids, especially with the pandemic.
Yeah.
There was so many people. I had a video done for my second Douglas house. It was a reveal. I was like, I don't know. I mean, this was the owner who said, hey, I really want to reveal. I go,
wow.
Oh, okay, well, I'll have my photographer do it.
Yeah.
So we did that, and that brought even more people to my page, and everyone's like, do you have a house in Bennett? Do you have a house in Palmyra? Tell me when you have a place. And I didn't have any more houses. And the hardest part is getting the workers to come out, because people are like, where's it at? You might as well tell them it's in Texas,
Yeah.
So that was the most difficult part, was finding people to come out about 30 minutes from there.
So you have all these amazing things that you're doing, that you've done. What's next?
Oh man, I haven't really let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, but I am moving to Arkansas, which everyone knows. I'm moving out to a place called Fairfield Bay. It's a resort town. It is about 3 hours south of Branson, Missouri, to kind of give people an idea. It's off of this huge lake. It's actually the 5th cleanest lake in America, supposedly, from what I got with my research. But that was drawing me in because I wanted to buy some houses for, vacationers. And I was looking at the Branson market, and currently I'm still waiting for this whole deal to go through, but I do have a contract pending on a 9-unit motel in Branson, which is completely, as we know, is outside my wheelhouse. But it's an older motel. It's right off of the lake. It's part of a bigger resort, and the owner retired, sold it to another person, and that person uses 1031. So my realtor said, hey, I know you're looking at condos. However, how about this motel? The owner's going to do financing. You only have to put 10% down. And I was like, show me this motel. So It's 9 units. 8 ones are 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and then there's a 4-3, and it has its own like those old like 1960s pools, right, right out front, and it's in working condition. And I'm gonna rename it to.
This is great.
My last name is Schmitz, and I'm naming it Schmitz Creek.
Nice.
So have you watched that show?
Love it, yeah.
I love it. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So are you gonna keep it a motel, or is it gonna be like short-term rentals? What are you gonna do with it?
Well, technically, it runs off those same platforms. So the way this was purchased is it was divided up. So it's part of a resort, and it still will stay part of this resort. Property manager who bought the bigger parcel so they could keep the slips there, which it's a whole thing I'm learning. He said that anybody who uses him as property management, well, their guests will have access to the entire resort, including the slips, the swim, everything. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be living 3 hours from there. You know, yeah, it takes a little bit out, but everything's on like Expedia. And I don't know if they do the Airbnb, VRBO, but they do all like the booking.com and all those. It goes to a lot of sites. Plus you can direct book on their website as well. And this thing is like from the 60s, 70s, and 80s from what I can tell in this.
So you're gonna keep it that theme, or
I'm going to keep it kind of like, you know,
retro?
Schitt's Creek, but updated. Okay. So, but right now it was renting out. In its current condition,
Oh, wow.
it is renting out. And people are actually giving it good reviews, which
That's
I'm like,
crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, what? So yeah, I will, you know, increase the rent. I'm going to bird this property. So I'll hold it for about, I think I have 18-month contract on it, but that's what I'm doing. I have 6 condos under contract. I close next
Wait,
week.
so you have this 9 unit plus 6 guys. You haven't even seen them either?
I haven't even seen the
And you've never
condos.
even done this.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Wow, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I have 6 condos. 5 of them are rented right now. So they've been have renters there for like 5 years each. Like all these are long term. And then one guy is just moving out. So that will be like a short term rental in the town that I live in. So I've got that going on. And then I'm also looking to do nurse housing in Little Rock. So I have a partner there that we may or may not pick up a few houses.
You know, nursing, I don't know, it's not a nursing home technically, but like I listened to a Bigger Pockets episode where there was a guy I was talking about his motto for that. And it's actually something that I really think is a great idea. And especially like in that area that you're doing that, it's something that I've kind of been thinking about myself for a while. And I'll probably, have to put more thought into it because I mean, I know there's a whole sorts of regulation stuff with nursing home stuff, and it's kind of expensive to even maintain the licenses and the regulations and all that. But that's awesome. I mean, you're just getting into everything that you're not comfortable with, obviously. But
I know, but I really, if you want to theme it, I'm really going hardcore into vacation rentals because the hospitality industry, I feel until Airbnb and VRBO, it was going down. It was less really about customer service and more about just a place to stay.
Seriously.
And for me, I'm all about the hospitality. I can't wait for my people. I want to make it like perfect for them. I want to bring back hospitality and customer service. And so I might do some flips here and there, but I'm really going to be focusing on, short term, maybe even more motels in the future. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. If anybody wants to partner up with some motels, maybe you come down and fix it up for me.
Let me know.
All right.
I'll be there. Well, no, that's amazing. Yeah, I love it. And I'm sure you're gonna do flips. I can guarantee you're gonna be doing flips.
I know. I told him I wasn't going to, but I don't know.
Well, before we wrap it up, you've gone from I don't know if I want to do this, and then your husband's like, do it, like you're good at it. When did that? What year was that?
That was 2015.
So 15 to 21 now, and you're doing 6 condos, a 9-unit motel that you haven't even seen. That's awesome. Like, I hope people really see that that's not a long time to make that type of growth.
Yeah.
What do you think has been like the leading charge, I guess, for you in that type of, that's really a lot of growth in not a lot of time.
I like to push myself, and I'm one of those people who I don't want to get stuck analyzing a deal. People are always like, well, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I go, just do it. Just do it, because it's like, again, I'm going to bring kids back in the situation. It's never a good time to have a kid. You can wait from you can be 20, you can be 40. You're never prepared. You never have enough money or enough time. Okay. Same with this. Once you've done your numbers, don't do them 50,000 times. jump in. You're going to learn something. Okay. We've all had our education now. What are you, a master's, PhD in flipping?
Yeah.
I'm like an associate. I'm an associate.
Dan's a mogul.
But is it like fully paid
Dan's a
for,
mogul.
right? It's fully paid
Yeah.
for, right? But that's the thing is just jump in and do it. Don't just like, okay, yeah, I'm buying some of these sight unseen, but I have done my due diligence to back it up. So now it's just kind of like, ooh.
So would you say that's like your probably biggest piece of advice for someone that's kind of stuck in this kind of like, I want to do this, but I don't know. Just do it.
Do it.
Nike, huh?
Do it, and
Just
don't
Nike.
get rid of your day job right away. Use that W-2. You know what I'm saying? But do it. If you don't like it, say, hey, you know what? I really like, investing in real estate. I got this money. I'm not going to do this life anymore. Find somebody else. Go to a meetup. Meet another person. Say, hey, I've seen your flips. Let me invest in you. So you don't need to flip to be a real estate investor.
Yeah.
You don't need to have them. You can provide the money and get a really good return. Obviously, you want to make sure the people you're investing in are vetted, but like anybody can invest. Anybody can do it.
And we've said that a million times. Like the money doesn't really matter. The
The
money
money.
comes if
Figure
you
it
have
out.
the deal.
if you have the deal,
And but
Mhm.
on the other side of that coin, like you could be that money,
Yeah.
So yeah, because there are a lot of people that have great paying W-2 jobs who, maybe they're putting in 60 hours a week or whatever the case is, they just don't want to do it.
Mhm.
But it's like, hey, this is a great passive way to do it.
and real
Get
quick,
into it.
I like to mention like some people, they really do love their jobs. And for them, real estate is just a side gig, right? And that's totally cool. Like even me, I will never stop working, even if I was financially secure for the rest of my life. I got to keep doing that.
Yeah.
But now I can do it for the community.
Yeah.
I can do other things. I can do Habitat for Humanity, but I got to I don't know, maybe I'm ADD or something.
Yeah.
But I got to keep moving. And you can
And
use
see,
it.
and that's the thing. When you love what you do, it's like it's not a job anymore.
It's not
You know,
a job.
and that's what I always tell people. Because even with me, like when I ended up leaving my job, they're like, "Oh, so you're not?" And then whenever they see me that I'm busy, they're like, "Well, I thought." I'm like, "Well, no, I'm like, I still gotta or I don't have to, but I love doing what I do. Like I really
Yeah.
do. Running the businesses that I do, my music,
And the thing is, like, if you get it to become a well-oiled machine, you don't have to have the physical ability to do
Exactly.
this anymore. Now you're just kind of running or managing and
Mhm.
overseeing things. So you could be old and decrepit. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, how many old and decrepit billionaires are there?
Yeah,
Like,
right?
Yeah.
it doesn't. You don't have to be physically able.
Yeah, and don't compare yourself. If anything, I would say if you haven't read Gary Keller's The One Thing, read it. That doesn't mean you can only have one thing, but get yourself focused in something, and you can pick up side things. But if you try to do a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
which is where I see the new people, and then they
Yeah.
get frustrated and they stop.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
And that's probably one of the hardest things to learn is to let go. And we've talked
And a
about
lot
that.
of it is like excitement too, because you see there's so many different avenues you can go down with real estate. And
Yeah.
you want to take a little bit of all of them, but you're
Yeah.
right. Like you can't master anything if you're trying to do everything. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. And we always ask our guests at the end of the show a couple questions, and I'm going to ask you the question. The first one is, if you look back when you were younger, what would be some advice that you would give yourself?
Ooh, I would say believe in you. Doesn't matter what anybody else says. I know it sounds kind of stereotypical, but I had really super low self-confidence when I was younger. I was actually really quiet and shy. I read a lot, so I don't have to tell myself to read a lot.
That's funny because you are not quiet or shy.
I know, I totally was, but I didn't believe in myself. I would read about these adventures, and I never thought I could do that. I never believed in myself. So that's actually something that's happened through life circumstance. I would say between, remarrying and this whole venture, I have the most confidence. I feel like I really could do anything. It kind of goes back to what you guys were saying in your introduction, get around the right people. Put yourself in the, if you're around 5 millionaires, you're going to be the next one. Or billionaires, right?
Or that crackhead.
That crackhead.
I don't want to be that crackhead. It's about mindset. And I wish I would tell myself is don't doubt yourself and just trust yourself.
Awesome. Love it. And if there was a 3-step formula of success, what is it?
Oh gosh, a 3-step formula for success. I would say it has to start with your support system. People, you have to have somebody, whether it's a friend, a spouse, a parent, a sister, a brother, whoever it is. You have to have that support system in place. Somebody who's going to bring you up when you're going to get down. You have to believe in yourself. You have to act. But I would say act would be the third thing. You have to act, because you can talk about it for 3 years, 5 years, but if you never act.
It's crazy you say that, because I just started listening. I mean, I've known about Grant Cardone for a long time. and I didn't even realize he had a podcast. And so I started listening to it the other day, and some guy called in and was talking about like this deal that he's like, I've got this deal. He just kept talking about it, and Cardone was like, are you gonna like do something, or are you just gonna talk about it? And Cardone was like, just buy it, just do it. Like, you're not gonna regret it, you know. And I said, you're like the female Grant Cardone. So like,
just do it.
Well, have you
20 exit.
20. Whoa.
Yeah.
Have you ever given any thought to like mentoring women that are trying to get into this?
I have actually. I'd actually thought about like doing a podcast just about, and it wasn't necessarily.
I can show you how to do
it. It wasn't going to be a real estate podcast. Actually, it was going to be mostly for women in general who are entrepreneurs, because I feel like. I don't know. There's a lot of really strong female people out there, but if you wanted to say, okay, I want to find a woman mentor in the real estate business, what are your thoughts?
Right, exactly.
Where are you going? Who are your top women?
Joanna Gaines.
Yeah, I know. But she's a designer, right? Like, you want somebody with the know-how and the money and all those things. And it's really hard to find it in the real estate world. And that's not saying that like I appreciate guys and girls, but like sometimes it's harder for some women to talk to guys, even in this day and age, right? Like we feel more of a tribe. Like when the guys all go out, you have your tribe. When the girls all go out, we have our tribe. Right. And it's easy for us to open up. And I would love to start something where
that's a great idea.
Empower.
Yeah.
Do it. Stop thinking about it and do it.
I gotta move first. And I gotta figure out how to use all this stuff.
Advice, Rebekah. Come on.
I gotta do it. I will do it.
We'll be your first guest. Hold on. No, it's moving. All right. I tried. And then I got one more question for you. If you were to write a book, what would be the title and the theme of it?
Ooh, the title would be
House Hugger?
House Hugger. It's going to be House Hugger now. And actually, it would be about restoring old houses and pretty much not demoing them, right? Like it would be giving people tips on how to love their old house, how to take care of it, and how to fix it. My biggest thing is, have you guys ever gone into like a 1920s Victorian and it looks really cool on the outside? You're like, yes, it's gonna be awesome. And then you go inside and you're like, oh, I see you redid everything in the 70s.
Yeah.
And it's just like, the, things don't match. Right. And you lose your zen. You lose the feng shui of everything. And I would love for people to really embrace it. And, if you want a modern house, buy a modern house, right? Or find a house that was meant to be a modern house, because it's going to be a lot cheaper to redo and you're going to feel more at peace.
That's awesome. I love how you have that niche. Like you know exactly where you're gonna go once you see the structure.
Like Nicole Curtis is kind of like my idol. I keep on hashtagging her and stuff, but she doesn't say anything.
No response.
No response. She probably thinks I'm a stalker. Kind of is.
Talking about hashtags, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me on Facebook. I'm 517 Home Designs. On Instagram, I go by 517 Home Designs too. It's 517.homedesigns. And I have my website, which is the Overall REI Gal, which is like overalls with REI Gal.com. And you can find me there. I'm going to be starting a TikTok. I do have a TikTok right now, but it's kind of in development. I'm going to be going over the motel when I start working on it.
Nice.
So if any of our listeners are, and I'm kind of stealing this from Bigger Pockets because they do ask this in the end, because I do think it's valuable. If any of our listeners what are you looking for? How can people help you? So if anyone, because I know you're kind of switching modes now. So what is something that if someone can reach out to you with something that you can use?
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm definitely I'm always looking for private money, but I'm really looking for like where I'm at. I'm looking for people who want to build wealth with, creative means, like people who say, hey, you're doing short-term rentals. I just want to provide you the money and I want a return. So like I'm looking for private money. I'm for sure, if anyone listens in Arkansas, I'm looking for a new construction crew. I've already kind of started, looking.
We might have to move over there.
I know. I'm just saying I need a construction crew now.
You got what, 15?
Yeah. That's what I'm really looking for. And then if anybody has like any questions and they're just trying to start out, whether you're a guy or a girl, doesn't matter, and you want to ask me questions, that's totally cool.
Awesome.
No, it's been great. So follow her. Make sure, especially, I'm going to definitely follow that TikTok. I'm going to definitely be on top of that.
I see them dancing moves.
Oh, gosh. I dance like a white guy. These hips lie.
I want to do a quick shout out to Yaya's Candy. We've been smashing on this.
I know.
But make sure you guys subscribe to our Instagram, the Minority Report podcast, and then make sure you guys subscribe to YouTube,
We're also
Spotify, all that.
Also working on our website.
Oh,
Yeah.
Should be up sometime in July at this point.
Nice, okay.
The minorityreportpod.com.
Let's
So
get
we'll
it.
have some fun stuff on there.
That sounds good. Yeah. I won't spill the tea. I was gonna give some news about we're doing big things with moguls out here. Let's get it. I'm gonna
Please don't segregate. Dressed in a suit, I can't relate. Minority Report, can't ignore. Being rich from poor and your credit score. My hand to please don't segregate. Dressed in a suit, I can't relate. Minority Report, can't ignore. Being rich from poor and your credit score.